Welcome everyone to the Saturday Evening Podcast, the podcast for NFL news, predictions, and more. And we got a lot of stuff to get into today. First of all, we got the Thursday night recap for what happened between the Bears and Packers, a real barn burner, 10-3 Packers win. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the drama with Antonio Brown and how he was finally released after all the drama that he's caused in Oakland, and they just recently released him. Pretty crazy stuff went on over the past few weeks and months with him. Honestly, pretty crazy stuff. I can't believe it. This guy just needs help, honestly. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the whole thing with Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys and my sort of opinion on that and his contract. And we'll talk about Week 1 picks against the spread, picks straight up, who I have winning in Week 1's games. So, enjoy this new podcast, everyone. Okay, so, Packers-Bears. Let's get this one thing straight. It's pretty much just like the Super Bowl from last year. It's a very low-scoring game, pretty boring, and, some fans, I think, like these defensive games, but I think the most of us sort of appreciate when there's some points. It doesn't necessarily have to be Chiefs-Rams, but a 24-21 game would be a little bit more appreciated over a 10-3 game, let's be quite honest here. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why the defenses seem to dominate this game. And part of it is because, look, Mitch Trubisky, I think the Bears, they're regretting taking him at number 2 overall. Everyone was, crapping on the Giants for taking Daniel Jones at number 6. But now it's really looking bad that the Bears actually traded up 1 pick to take Mitch Trubisky, especially when he was in the same draft as Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. That is no good. You traded up to get a quarterback before 2 quarterbacks that are clearly, I think we can say, better than Mitch Trubisky. That is bad. What is good for the Packers is that their defense looks a lot better. A lot better. They added tons of free agents. They didn't add flashy free agents. They just added solid guys, solid improvements to their roster. They've drafted a lot of young talent in that secondary, and that's the big reason I picked the Packers to win this division this year. I think the defensive talent is really going to help them out. And you can see on the sidelines that Aaron Rodgers, he's a lot happier now. He's not grumpy. He's not, he's a little bit moody. We know that about Aaron. He's got a big ego, and I think deservedly so with Aaron because he's so talented, he's very smart, and he's pretty good looking, let's be honest. But he's got an ego because of that. And, when his team around him is not good, he's not happy. But for him, it doesn't really matter if he puts up 10 points if the end result is the Packers winning. I think with Aaron Rodgers, he would rather win 10-3 than lose by 38-35 and put up 4 touchdowns. That's just how it is. There's this old quote from Peyton Manning that I think I'd like to bring up here. Some fan went up to Peyton. He said, "Peyton, you played great for my fantasy team." And then Peyton Manning just responds, "Yeah, but I lost." It doesn't matter for these quarterbacks, the fantasy team or whatever. It doesn't really matter. They just want to win. And if they win 10-3, it's better than losing 38-35. That's just how it is. That's how it is with Aaron Rodgers. He's happy. The Packers are on a winning track. Now, obviously, I think going forward, the Packers will probably have to score more than 10 points to win games. But a win is a win, even if it's an ugly win. You win Week 1. You need 9 or so more wins to basically get into the playoffs. I think they're on the right track. So, another thing about this Thursday night game is that it was ridiculously sloppy. There was 20 accepted penalties. There was more than 20 penalties. I'm just going off accepted ones. 2 delay of games on the same drive for Chicago. It was crazy. 3rd down and 40. That, to me, is basically where you have with the Bears here. Not only was Mitch Trubisky bad, not only was Matt Nagy's play calling a little questionable, but they got into a situation where it was 3rd down and 40 yards. I mean, maybe there is some value in preseason now. You got to think about that because both the Packers and Bears offenses look very sloppy in today's game. Other than that one drive, which ended up being the difference in this game, where Aaron Rodgers just activated Aaron Rodgers mode and had that really long pass, and then ended up, getting a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. But I guess the Rams would be a counter argument here to like the whole preseason thing because they're the ones who started this whole crap where they rested their starters. They've been doing that under Sean McVay, and now they did that last year and they came out of the gates really hot. But these offenses have came out of the gates looking really bad. So I don't know what to think. It really depends on. I think you got to choose sort of a middle ground option. Get your starters some playing time. I mean, maybe it works for Sean McVay, but obviously I don't think it's working for everyone here. Now, another subject in this game was the Bears fans booing their team. Now, I have no problem with this. This has got to be incredibly frustrating. You got to look at it this way. Most of the game, or a very large portion of the game, the Packers were leading 7-3. And then the Bears would get the ball and do nothing. They would just go 3 and out. They'd punt. They'd maybe have one first down, then punt. They'd turn it over on downs. Just everything going wrong. But they're still in the game. At least in theory, they're still in the game. They're down by 4 points. You score a touchdown, you take the lead, you score a field goal, you're only down by 1, and they're doing nothing. I can't blame these Bears fans for booing. Their defense is playing well, they're keeping them in the game, and yet their offense is doing nothing. It's ridiculous. But there's one thing that Bears fans did have to cheer about on Thursday night, and that was that their new kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, with all the pressure in the world, made that 38-yard field goal early in that game to put the only points that Chicago scored up on the board. And he got a nice round of applause from Bears fans, so I think at least he is feeling good despite this loss. Because obviously, I don't know about the mentality of kickers, but it is pretty hard to be the new Bears kicker after what happened with the whole wild card round and everything with Cody Parkey. So obviously, good stuff for Eddie Pinheiro. We'll see how that changes or stays the same over the course of the season, where hopefully for the sake of Bears fans, they put up more than 3 points and they actually attempt more field goals, but we'll see what happens. And there's one last thing I would like to two more things I'd like to say about this game. Matt LaFleur, the new coach for the Packers, made a challenge for pass interference. He challenged essentially a no call, and it was the right call on the field, which makes me think, the NFL was being a little reactionary with this whole Saints-Rams thing. It was a big public relations nightmare. Obviously, you had Saints fans going crazy. So they made this new rule about pass interferences, and I kind of agree with it, but it's mostly going to be a waste of time. Because it's mostly just going to be challenging ticky-tacky calls out here, or because if they did change the ruling, it would have been ticky-tacky, because it was not really a pass interference. I think this is just a case of LaFleur challenging it, or just trying to sort of figure out what kind of thing they might change. It was not overturned. It shouldn't have been overturned. So I think this is just going to waste time a lot of the time, unfortunately. But there you go. I guess this is what the NFL needs to do to avoid more public relations nightmares, because it's better to waste time than to have what happened in the NFC Championship game last year. Now, one last thing I'd like to say is I did pick Chicago to beat Green Bay, but I picked Green Bay to cover. Now, I was right about Green Bay covering, obviously. They won by 7. I believe they were 3-point underdogs. So not only did they beat a favorite, they beat them straight up. So good for the Packers, good for them getting off to a good start. And the Bears, they got to get things figured out with Mitch Trubisky. Now the second big topic we got to get into is the Antonio Brown drama. This man, literally just a few minutes before I started recording, was released by the Raiders, and it is the right decision to release him. Now let me just say this. When Antonio Brown was traded away from the Steelers got a bargain, obviously. People said, only a 3rd and 5th round pick for this man's talent? Now I think we should be saying it's good they got anything for this man's antics. As a matter of fact, I wrote that before he was released, literally just about an hour ago, So now they basically stole a 3rd and 5th round pick from the Raiders, actually. Now, let's just go over some of the things that Antonio Brown has done throughout this entire offseason. Some antics have been worse than others, but overall, he's been a major headache. So here's the list. Just since he joined Oakland, we're not even going to get into the Pittsburgh stuff. We're not going to go into throwing furniture out of a window. We're not going to get off to speeding on the highway or AB, arguing with Big Ben. Just ignore that, and let's just focus on the stuff he did in Oakland. So first of all, showing up late to his introductory press conference. That's already a great omen right there. Showing up to training camp in a hot air balloon. Getting frostbite on his feet because he ignored some sort of safety procedure with, some sort of thing he was doing. The whole helmet saga and threatening to retire over said helmet. Now we don't even know if he'll even play because I don't know what team will want to sign him after all this stuff. You got not showing up to practices. He posted about the letter he got from General Manager Mike Mayock about the fines he got for not showing up to the graphic or for the practice. And he wrote with just this horrible grammar, like his sort of commentary on it. Just this incoherent message, like I don't even know what it was. It's just this horrible thing that he wrote. It's ridiculous. And finally, which I think was the final nail in the coffin for the Raiders releasing him, was he got into this altercation with Mike Mayock, where he basically called him a cracker, he called him a bitch, and, that's pretty much not how you talk to the guys in charge. That's just not what you do. And that is just the stuff off the top of my head. There's probably stuff that AB has done this offseason that is ridiculous that I'm actually forgetting about. But that's just the stuff off the top of my head. Just the stuff off the top of my head. Now, good teams, what they do is they get rid of diva receivers once they start making noise. Think about it. Patriots, they got Randy Moss. He was sort of a reclamation project for him because he was actually with, ironically enough, the Raiders, and he stunk it up there. So he went with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and he lit up the frickin' league. But the minute he started, making noise, Patriots cut him. Patriots got rid of him. Now, you can argue all you want about the Giants this season. Maybe they'll still be bad, but I think they'll be more focused this year and going forward without Odell Beckham on the team. Now, I wrote that the Raiders didn't stand up to AB in this situation because Gruden said he was going to play him literally yesterday. And now all of a sudden they're cutting him. So I got to applaud the Raiders here. This is the right decision. I was writing how Mike Mayock, the general manager, is a puppet because, he's okay with letting Antonio Brown play, but obviously not going to happen anymore. Antonio Brown has been released. So good for the Raiders. Good for standing up. I mean, it sucks. Really does. You got rid of this guy who you thought was going to be a great weapon for Derek Carr, or at least, somewhat productive, worth the 3rd and 5th round pick. You thought, you knew he was a diva, but you didn't think it'd be this bad. You get rid of a 3rd and 5th round pick for essentially nothing now, but it's still the right decision. You got to let this guy go. And Antonio Brown essentially was released after, his guarantees were voided. So he posted about it on Instagram today saying, release me, end this, whatever. He feels like the victim here. So, the Raiders said, well, we'll release you then. And like I said, completely the right decision here. And let me just sum this up by saying, I think AB just needs some sort of counseling. It's not right because he wasn't always like this. He was drafted, you got to keep in mind here, he was drafted in 2010. And he played years and years with the Steelers where you didn't really hear anything about him. He was just a talented receiver. He went from a 6th round pick all the way to being one of the league's best receivers, if not the best receiver for a while. He really worked his way up, and you didn't hear anything about him. Apparently Mike Tomlin is out here saying that the Steelers covered things up, but even then, he can't have been the nightmare that he is now. And you can't help but wonder if he's exhibiting symptoms of CTE. I just saw Chris Lawn, I think, tweet, oh, you can't assume this. And I'm not assuming this, but you can't help but wonder a little bit if this sort of thing is happening because of, concussions or whatever. Because Vontaze Burfict, literally, who's now on the Raiders, ironically enough, ever since Antonio Brown got that hit from him, he's been acting up. You gotta wonder if this sort of thing is because of a concussion, because of CTE. You can't help but wonder this kind of stuff. And it's really, really sad that this is what's happening with Antonio Brown. But like I said, I think no one's going to want to sign for him a while, so I think he's got to, get this sort of thing taken care of, because honestly, I think he's having problems with his mental health at this point. It's crazy. I don't know what else to say. There you go. Okay, so next topic here, we got the Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, all this sort of thing. So let me give you 3 different football teams here. The Detroit Lions, the Washington Redskins, and the Dallas Cowboys. My question is, what do all 3 of these teams have in common? I'll tell you what they have in common. They are the only teams in the NFC with no NFC Championship appearances since the 1990s. That is to say, no deep playoff runs since the 1990s. Are the Cowboys better than the Detroit Lions and Washington Redskins over the past 20 years? Of course they are. The Redskins have been terrible under the ownership of Dan Snyder. Just terrible, maybe like 3 or 4 playoff appearances. Just bad. The Lions, they were a complete disaster during the 2000s. Now they've found some stability under Matthew Stafford, but not enough to win playoff games. The Cowboys have been better. And yet, they've never put it completely together. Even teams like the Buccaneers and Cardinals have somewhat recently gone to a Super Bowl. The Cowboys have not. And to me, the reason for that is because for the Cowboys, it's always been about the star. It's been about the brand. It's been about being America's team. It's been about the star. And it's been about the stars as in the star players. It's been about flashy yet distracting players. It's been about Terrell Owens, Des Bryant, and now Ezekiel Elliott. So yes, I'm a Giants fan. You can accuse me of being a Dallas hater, and you'd be right. But I will say this. Dallas Cowboys have been a decent football team as of late. They've made the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 years. They've had a winning record each of the last 3 years. Dak Prescott has led this team to wins. Jason Garrett has led this team to wins. They have made the playoffs many, many times during the 21st century. They win games much more than my Giants have won recently. Absolutely. I'm not denying this. But in big games, they ultimately fold. It's what they do. It's pretty sad, but it's what they do. Well, it's not sad for me, but it's just what they do. Ultimately, I think this comes down to 2 things. 2 things that Dallas has got to focus on if they want to win a Super Bowl. They got to get a better coach than Jason Garrett. This man is some sort of puppet for Jerry Jones, honestly. Because think about it. Jimmy Johnson was fired after winning 2 Super Bowls with Dallas. He didn't get along with Jerry Jones. And yet, for Jason Garrett, Jerry Jones seems okay with him. I don't know why. I don't know why after all these years of, Dallas is still the number 1 brand, but the winning has not come with it. Not the winning big games, the winning in regular season games. That's absolutely come with it. They've had playoff appearances. They've been good. But the winning the big games, that has not come with it. And to me, if you're Jerry Jones, how is that acceptable? Because this is an owner who's in the Hall of Fame. He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's seen it before. Why does he think that it's acceptable with Jason Garrett? Because I tell you what, before this Dallas team made the playoffs in 2014, 2016, and last year, 2018, before they had 4 of the last 5 seasons being winning ones, they went 8-8 3 straight years. And in each of these 8-8 seasons, 2011, 2012, 2013, they lost a Week 17 Sunday Night Football game for the division, each and every time. And Jason Garrett was the coach after all those years. And Jerry Jones kept him through all that. Now you might be thinking, well, it's good that he showed loyalty, because now Dallas is a playoff team. But think about it. They've never had a run to the NFC Championship. Not even to the Super Bowl. Never had a run to the NFC Championship. Think about that. Just divisional round against the Packers, loss. Divisional round against the Packers, loss. Divisional round against the Rams, loss. No deep runs. No deep runs in the playoffs. It's just how it is. And the second thing I think Dallas needs to do, besides get a better coach than Jason Garrett, they got to focus less on players like Zeke. Do teams like the Patriots have star players that make noise, like off-season things like holdouts or, the issues Zeke had with domestic violence? No. Super Bowl winning teams don't do this kind of stuff. I think they should have gotten rid of Zeke. And I tell you what, this is also has to do with the declining value of running backs in the NFL. Zeke is an incredibly talented player, and definitely someone would have picked him up, someone would have paid him. But I don't know if it was worth it for the Cowboys at this point. You got to pay Dak, you got to pay Amari, get a running back that's a little cheaper, Save money. It won't be that much more different. Get a better coach, and that'll essentially be more than worth it, I think. So, focus less on Zeke. Focus less on paying distracting players. Get a better coach. And then this young core, this young talented defensive core that the Cowboys have, they'll win a Super Bowl. I think they will, if they just focus less on these things. Dak Prescott is good enough to make this team win a Super Bowl. If old Peyton Manning can get a team a Super Bowl, if Nick Foles can get a Super Bowl, Dak Prescott can get a Super Bowl too. It's just got to be a better coach and focusing less on these overpaying. Well, they really didn't overpay Zeke, but it's still $90 million. But you got to be more smart with the cap. You can do a running back by committee in today's NFL. And I hate to say this as a Giants fan because obviously people were criticizing the Saquon Barkley pick. And I think you kind of have a point with that in today's NFL. But at least Saquon's a good guy. With Zeke, it's too much drama. Okay, so let's end the podcast by talking about my Week 1 picks. I will give you who I think wins straight up, and I will give you who I think wins against the spread. So our first game, Miami is a 6.5-point underdog against the Baltimore Ravens. Now I'm using these point spreads from the Vegas Insider Consensus. It may be off by a half a point or so, depending on what kind of website you're looking at, but these are basically consensus point spreads here. Miami is a 6.5-point underdog, and they are playing at home. They are an underdog by that much. Now, obviously, Miami is not a sexy pick. They are not a sexy team. Everyone thinks they're tanking, but I will pick them 6.5. I think we might see some early Fitz magic. I think we'll see him elevate this team a little bit. I don't think he'll win straight up, but I think he'll keep it close because Ryan Fitzpatrick always plays great in September. He can't elevate this team to wins, I don't think, because this Miami core around him is just not talented enough. I think a late Justin Tucker field goal for the Ravens wins it here. I think they scrape by 23-21. Now we got Atlanta +4 over Minnesota. This is simply too many points. I trust Matt Ryan of the Falcons over Kirk Cousins, the Vikings quarterback. The Falcons defense is healthy again. Now this game is in Minnesota. Minnesota does pretty good at home. Kirk Cousins does do good in those 1 o'clock games versus the later in the day games. I think they win this one 21-20. I think they just scrape by the Vikings. Just scrape by. But I'm still going to pick Atlanta to cover here. Washington +10 over Philly. Give me the Redskins. This is too many points. I feel like division rivals have to play with some pride. Obviously, Philly's a better team. I have them winning. But I think the Redskins might score some late garbage points. They might score a late touchdown. It doesn't really matter. A late field goal that doesn't matter. That just sort of, puts them back within the point spread. I have the Eagles winning 31-24. New York Jets -3 over Buffalo. Give me the Jets. I think Le'Veon Bell will look fresh. The Jets acquisitions will look good to start the year. Sam Darnold, the Jets quarterback, looked great at the end of last season. Josh Allen did not look so great at the end of last season. And, the Jets have home field advantage. I think the crowd will be pretty pumped up to see their, new quarterback. We'll see what they got in Sam Darnold starting the year off. He is their new franchise quarterback. That's what they're hoping, at least. I got the Jets winning 24-17. Tampa Bay -1 over San Francisco. This is essentially who you're picking straight up to win. I like Tampa Bay playing at home. I like the new coach, Bruce Arians. I think the Bucs are kind of a sleeper team this year. I kind of like San Francisco this year, so I went back and forth with this one, but I think Jameis Winston will look good to start the year. Throwing it off to Mike Evans, getting some touchdowns in this game. 28-24, I got the Bucs winning. Kansas City -3.5 over Jacksonville. This is Patrick Mahomes against Nick Foles It's pretty simple. I think Nick Foles, he looked great in Philly and everything, but that was his backup. I don't know how he's going to be as a franchise quarterback. Andy Reid's Chief teams, they always get off to a hot start during September. They're always getting off to a good start. They got off to a great start last year. 3.5. This is one of the best point spreads of the week, I think. I know Jacksonville's playing at home and everything, but I don't think they have a great home field advantage. Chiefs 3.5 point favorites, but I will pick them to win 30-17 and cover the spread. Okay, next game, Cleveland -5.5 over Tennessee. I am taking Cleveland here. I'm buying into the hype, and I tell you what, I was high on the Titans this offseason. I like where they were heading, but this Cleveland team, their fans are going to be hyped in this game. They're going to be loud. They're going to be super hyped about, this offseason that they've had, getting all this talent. They will be playing with a lot of energy. The crowd will be going nuts, like I said. I think they'll win by a touchdown. Baker Mayfield will elevate this team more than Marcus Mariota will elevate the Titans playing on the road. I have Cleveland winning 27-20. Next game, we got the LA Rams against the Carolina Panthers. The Rams went 6-2 on the road last season. 4 of those wins were blowouts. This one, I do not think will be a blowout. I like the Panthers this year, but a line so close, as is to say the Rams are only 2-point favorites. Give me the Rams here. Or they can win by a field goal and cover. Give me the Rams. I predict them to win 31-27. Detroit -2.5 over Arizona. Give me the Lions. I don't know what to expect from Cliff and Kyler, but I can trust Detroit to win by a field goal late. Matthew Stafford has led his team on plenty of game-winning drives. I think that might be the case here. Either that or Arizona, I think, could completely just sort of look bad, or they can look good and surprise us, but I think Detroit will ultimately win 20-17. Seattle -9.5 over Cincinnati. There's no division rivalry here, so I don't think Cincy's going to be playing with any pride. I got Seattle covering this big point spread, and I don't like picking a team to cover a big point spread, but I have to do it here. Russell Wilson at home against Andy Dalton. They got to win by at least 10. Give me Seattle to win 34-20. Indianapolis +6.5 over the Chargers. No Melvin Gordon for the Chargers. No Derwin James. No Russell Okung. They're missing their left tackle. They're missing a playmaker on defense. I still think the Chargers ultimately win, but the Colts keep it close here. I know there's no Andrew Luck. I know that factors into the point spread here. Give me the Colts to cover this spread. New York Giants +7 over the Cowboys. Give me the Giants to cover this spread. Saquon Barkley will outperform Zeke, who might be a little out of shape after not practicing this offseason. Eli and Dak will play pretty close, but unfortunately, the thing about the Cowboys is they break our hearts late in a bunch of games. That's how it is being a Giants fan. I think Dallas will win 23-20, but the Giants will cover. Pittsburgh +6 over New England. There's a dilemma here. The Pats play bad early on, but the Steelers play really bad in Foxborough. Still, I think this reinvigorated Steeler culture will be more focused. They will still lose 28-24, but they will put up a fight, unlike in many other games they've played in New England. Houston +7 over New Orleans. Let's be honest here. New Orleans should have been 0-2 to start last season. You know about that Saints-Browns game in Week 2? All those kicks that the Browns kicker missed. Saints should have been 0-2 to start last year. They got off to bad starts. I think this will be a fun shootout. I'll still have the Saints scraping by 31-30 here, but I definitely like the Texans to cover the spread. Oakland -2 over Denver. You know what? I had Oakland covering the spread here, but I'm changing that to Denver. I think Oakland Raiders, they're just a mess right now with Antonio Brown and everything. I think Denver will actually just straight up win this 17-13. They might change the spread a little bit. But it's crazy what's going on in Oakland right now, but I think Joe Flacco and this team will scrape by on a road win in an ugly 17-ish, 13-ish kind of game. Give me Denver to cover that last spread. So there you go. Those are my Week 1 picks. That is the Saturday Evening Podcast. Signing off.